6:31 having arrived. I had a gavel. I guess I'd use it, but I don't have one. So anyway, good evening, everyone. This is the City of Newcastle Board of Adjustment public hearing for Wednesday, April 7, 2021. We are meeting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time via electronic virtual means. I'm Michael J. Quaranta. I am the mayor of the City of Newcastle. An application has been filed by Natalie Burke, 107 West 7th Street. Natalie, you might have to tell me this. This is Decano?
Dacono.
Decano, okay,
Dacono,
Colorado.
Dacono. It's named after three ladies.
There you go. 80514. That's the zip code in Colorado. She's the applicant. And Jorge Milan Silva, who's the owner of 2327 Pleasant Valley Road, Newark, Delaware 19702, for a property located at 106 Rilgon Avenue, Newcastle, Delaware 19720, tax parcel number 21-004.00-142, zoned residential R1, seeking a variance from required 8-foot minimum side yard setback and the 20-foot aggregate side yard setback requirements in the schedule of district regulations of chapter 230 of the zoning code, so as to permit construction of a new residence 5 feet from the easterly side lot line and to provide a 14-foot aggregate side yard setback. For purposes of considering this application, the Board of Adjustment is meeting today, Wednesday, April 7th, 2021, as I referenced earlier. This notice was posted on March 17th, 2021, and it also appeared in several publications. Let me proceed now with the introductions. We have what appears to be a quorum. I've announced myself, but I'll do it again. I'm Mike Quaranta. And ask other members of the Board of Adjustment, starting with Mr. Velasco, then to Mr. Athey, announce their attendance here. Counselor?
Yes, present.
Okay, and Mr. Athey.
Dave Athey, city engineer, present.
Okay, we are also joined by Jeffrey Bergstrom, who's the city building official, and other city staff who are helping with the recording of these proceedings. Mr. Tracy, would you like to introduce your client? Before you proceed, we will eventually ask you and or your client to be sworn in, but I thought you might want to just introduce yourselves first.
Sure. Again, for the record, my name is John Tracy. I'm an attorney with Young, Connolly, Stargett, and Taylor here on behalf of the applicant who you met earlier, Miss Natalie Burke. To put a ribbon on the package, Ms. Burke is she is a relative of Mr. Silva, the property owner. I believe she described him as her uncle-in-law to me. So there is a connection there.
All right, and Ms. Burke?
Yes, for the record, my name is Natalie Burke. I do live in Dacono, Colorado. I'm a relative of Jorge Milan Silva. He is my uncle-in-law. And I am here to petition on behalf of him seeking to build a house at Rilgon Avenue.
Terrific,
Ms.
thanks.
Burke,
All right.
let me swear you in, Ms. Burke, for any other testimony you give. Would you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Tracy, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think I wanted to note, as I told Ms. Burke earlier today, that just showing how this pandemic draws everything together, I was before the City of Newcastle Board of Adjustment on the Delmarva Power application the night before the world shut down. So I think it's kind of nice that we seem to be heading in the right direction. I'm back in front of you, albeit virtually. As you noted, Mr. Mayor, we are seeking 2 variances to facilitate the demolition of an existing home and the construction of a new home on this small lot on Berlin Avenue, basically just a couple of lots off of Route 9. The lot itself is 0.14 acres, roughly 6,000 square feet, in the community of Baldton. This is a subdivision that was recorded in 1903 and has a microfilm number of 38. In other words, it's just barely older than Dan Laska. Like many of the subdivisions of that time, it appears that the community was divided into 20-foot wide lots, which folks could then accumulate however many lots that they wanted. This lot appears to be resulting from the combination of 2 such lots. As you noted, it is zoned R1. It's non-conforming with regard to lot size. 7,500 square feet, I believe, is the minimum lot size for this community and this zoning. It's also non-conforming with regard to lot width. 40 feet is the lot width of the current lot. 65 feet is what zoning requires. I did submit a PowerPoint / slideshow. If that can be pulled up, the first slide you would see is a picture of the existing house. This will be coming up in just a second. There we go. There we go. It's loading. That's the house that currently exists on the lot per county records. As you can see, it's a rather tired ranch home. Per county records, it was constructed in approximately 1949. The house as it exists currently is non-conforming not only to the width and size of the lot, but also to the existing side setbacks on both sides, as well as the front setback. You can see somewhat on, and I'll expand on this a little bit later, 2-story homes exist on either side of this home. In fact, the one you see just side right and beyond, those were constructed very recently. The next slide shows the proposal for this lot. Our intention is to construct a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom home, 2-story home, similar to what you will see that's been constructed to our west. We will be demolishing the existing home, which if you can zoom in on this, I don't have the capability to do it, but the existing home you can note is actually wider than what we are proposing. You can see at the front there is where you can see it extending out to the left, several feet further than what we're proposing. And on the right, we're basically holding the same setback line that exists with the home currently. The proposal, again, the next slide shows the elevations, approximately a 2,000 square foot home, again, using materials similar to those that you see next to us. We will have a garage, as you can see from the rendering, as well as a driveway extending obviously from the street to the garage, allowing for at least 2 vehicles to be parked off of the street. Going back to the slide immediately before this one, these illustrate the 2 variances that we need due to the small nature of the lot to construct a home with a garage. Similar to what is adjacent to us, we need variances for the aggregate side setback as well as the one side setback to the right as you're looking down at this drawing. I'm not sure if that's considered east or south or southeast. As I mentioned, we've increased the setback adjacent to the other property line such that it meets the required 8-foot minimum. Again, we're providing 9 feet on this side. And on the easterly side, as I mentioned, we're essentially holding what exists previously. Again, 20 feet is required for an aggregate. Here we're at 14 feet, so that we need relief of 6 feet for that aggregate number. If we can flip forward a couple of slides, you'll see my work.
John, can I interrupt for a moment while
Sure.
you have this slide up? What I can't read from the screen is what is the width of the permitted building envelope? Can you tell from the dimensions on that?
You know what? Hold on. I have a copy of the plan behind me. Let me take a look at that. Well, I would think actually it's 20 feet. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I got a D in my only college math class, but if we have, it's a 40-foot wide lot, we have to hold 20 feet for setbacks. It would be a 25-foot 20-foot building envelope.
Okay,
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Athey. If we move forward, I took some pictures of the homes that have been constructed immediately to our west. Should be one more slide after this one. There we go. These are the 3 homes that were constructed to the west of us between our lot and the next cross street to Brogun Avenue. Similar to what we're proposing, you can see here they're modest 2-story homes that replaced some existing homes that existed on these lots. There were 2 homes on 2 lots. There were existing nonconformities with those homes as well. In fact, the 2 houses that you see on the left were actually the result of one lot being subdivided to create 2 additional lots. This was 100-foot lot that was created to make 2 50-foot lots. So similar to what we're before you with, these 3 lots appeared before the board to seek relief, somewhat similar to what we are seeking today. In 2018, late 2018, as I mentioned, the 2 that you see immediately on the left received variances to create 50-foot wide lots as opposed to 65-foot wide lots. It was one 100-foot lot that contained a single home. It was subdivided to create the 2 lots. The house on the far right was an existing non-conforming lot, but it received a variance because it had 2 street setbacks imposed upon it. And similar to what Mr. Lasco pointed out earlier, I think it had a building envelope of about 22 feet when that setback was factored in. Additionally, the 2 lots on the 2 homes on the left had to come back to the board seeking relief from the aggregate side setback from 20 feet down to 17.5 feet. As I looked at the minutes of the meeting today for that hearing, it looks like perhaps when they constructed the homes, they didn't realize that there was an aggregate setback limitation. So even though they were meeting minimum setbacks on both sides, they had to come back to you for the variance on the aggregate. So, and the next few slides actually kind of indicate what I am talking about. I attached this. These are the 2 lots that are to the middle lot and then the right lot, which is on the corner. But the next few slides show the plans for those, and they're included simply so there's a record. It's hard to read, but you can see 2 boxes on the right-hand side. Those are reflecting the variances that were granted for the lot width that I mentioned previously. And then the last 2 slides are the individual building plans for the 2 homes in the middle. And again, they reflect the variances that were awarded, not just for the lot width, but also for the aggregate side setback. So the relief that we're seeking here is similar to that which is approved next door to us. We are not seeking the relief for the lot width. As for better or for worse, this lot is a legally existing non-conforming lot that allows a house to be constructed on it. So variance is not necessary to that. We are seeking the relief from the setback requirements, and those are really due to the fact that the narrowness of the lot at 40 feet as opposed to even the 50 feet for the lots next to us. It's almost impossible to construct anything on this lot that would be consistent with what you see on both sides of us. Certainly nothing that would allow for a driveway and a garage to be constructed on the home. I will also note that we're not trying to fit the same size or same width house on this lot as what is next door to us. Next door to us, according to the plans, those lots or those homes are 32 feet wide on a 50-foot lot. We're actually proposing a 26-foot wide home on a 40-foot lot, which is how we end up being able to get the 14-foot setback. And again, I know my client had conversations with the building department a while ago when they were formulating the plans. And one of the things that was suggested and that we have done is not center the house on the lot, but to allow for a larger setback on one side. So there's the ability to get around the house. That's why we're not putting it right in the middle and looking for equal distance setbacks, but we're 9 feet on the one side and 5 feet of the other to allow for the free flow around the structure for construction and then obviously thereafter. So that's an overview of the proposal. Both myself and my client are obviously happy to answer any questions. I will tell you also that my client did reach out to neighbors with a letter several weeks ago, explaining what we were seeking and obviously giving a phone number for any feedback or questions with regard to the proposal. To my knowledge, we have not received any communications based on that solicitation.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Thank you, Mr.
Ms.
Mayor.
Burke, you don't have to say anything, but it's up to you if you want to add anything. Or if you need to correct anything Mr. Tracy said, which is frequently the case.
No, I think Mr. Tracy clarified everything that we're seeking, and I think everything is on the table.
All right, appreciate it. So, Ms. Bergmiller, if you could put the first picture up that Mr. Tracy used in his presentation, please. It's a picture of from standing out in the center of the street, looking at the existing structure. Could you put that back up, please?
Sure, hold on one second.
I was out there 2 nights ago and walked the property from front to back, so I wanted to ask a question. All right, there we go. All right. It's not perfectly centered, but it's close. So, Mr. Tracy, let's be creative for a moment. Say this structure goes down, but let's use it for a point of reference. Which side is going to get the 9-foot setback and which side is going to get the, I guess it's 5 foot? What's going to get the remainder?
The right side, as you're looking at the house, will have the 9-foot setback.
Right.
And the left side of the house would have the 5-foot setback. Again, the 9-foot, if you're looking at the house, would be probably somewhere around 3 to 4 feet in towards the house, because this is closer to the lot line than what we are proposing on this side. You can't really see it on the left side because of the tree, but that lot line, that setback is essentially being held.
Okay, and and my comment there is this, because this part was, and I'll ask, I don't know if Mr. Bergstrom has a point of view on this or not, but one thing that I noted was so Natalie, the property to the right, as you can see, and I don't know if you've been out here recently, but the property to the right has no windows. So, you know, having a house that's 2 stories next to it, frankly, being closer to that does less to obscure light because, well, there's obviously no windows on the side of that house to the right. As you look at that green structure, there's a garage, and then there's obviously a room above it, but you can see no windows. And that's not the case when you look at the house on the left. There's actually a couple of windows. So I don't know if there might be a perfectly good reason for building purposes or engineering purposes or for drainage or the slope of the lot or whatever. It's also a very, very big lot. It's very deep. My own thought, just walking it, would be if you were going to be closer to one side, probably would make more sense to be closer to the side of the house with the neighbor that doesn't have any windows, and maybe not as close to the side of the property on the left where they have multiple windows. So that's just one comment. The last question I have for you, Mr. Tracy, is this. In the new plan, do you envision that the new structure would be set back? So at least the streetscape would look kind of somewhat similar, even though you point out that the lots and the houses to the right are of different size, and but they're all kind of set up rather symmetrically in terms of where the driveways come in and where they stop, and you enter the garage, the front, the front entrance, etc. Envision that this would align with that, or is it deeper into the lot, or not as deep?
I envision, Mr. Chairman, it's going to be essentially the same as what you see next to us. This house that you're seeing right now is well into the existing front setback. Our house is going to be, just eyeballing it from the plan that I'm looking at, at least 20 feet further back. It's going to be meeting the 30-foot, so it's going to be at the 30-foot setback line or maybe just behind that, which my recollection is from looking at the plans next to us, it's pretty similar, if not identical to what they did.
All right. All right, that's all I have for now. Let me ask.
May I
Sorry,
make
go ahead,
one
Natalie.
comment?
Ms.
Pardon me.
Burke, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to comment on the side closest to the house with no windows. The reasoning for that is because when you're looking at the house on the left side, there's a large tree that sort of obstructs the what would be the property entrance for any construction vehicles. So we tried to create a 9-foot entrance area just in case in the future someone wants to put a pool in the back or a shed, I'm saying, anything. There would still be area for someone to be able to drive in the back on our own property. So that was sort of the reasoning for offsetting on that.
Was it, okay, is it the large tree that we're looking at right in the front, or is it that other tree that looks like it's some kind of conifer over to the left, which is closer to the fence line? Is that the one you're talking, or is there yet another tree in the back there? I don't remember another one being in the backyard.
It would be the largest tree you're looking at right there in the front on the left
I
side.
see.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. I appreciate that. All right, Mr. Athey and then Mr. Lasko.
Thank you, Your Honor. You were asking somewhat similar questions. And I think, get the name correct here, Ms. Burke probably answered. Mr. Tracy described why it wasn't centered. I was going to ask him to repeat that, but I believe Ms. Burke might have answered it, that by centering it, you'd only have 7 feet on either side and you're not really driving anything back. So that's what is intended for the okay.
Yeah, and that was, again, that was also after, the initial plans, I think, or they sat down with the building department. That was a suggestion as well, to create that ability so that you would have more room on the one side of the house in case there's ever a need following construction for something to get back there.
Can I ask Jeff, would you mind, does that have anything to do with like emergency access or anything? Or are you thinking more just for the convenience of the owner?
Well, there are big trees on the lot line in the rear. People need to maintain those trees. People have a right to put in a swimming pool if they want. It's a beautiful lot for such a thing, but you can't get a backhoe through 7 feet. So slipping it over a couple of feet from the center is actually, in my opinion, a pretty good idea. And doing it on that side will pretty much allow that big tree to be saved, which is always what I'm in favor of.
No disagreement there. Then I guess my last question, and Mr. Tracy, you might have said this, but I'm looking at your plans. So the existing, what is the existing setback on the left as opposed to the 5 foot proposed? Or is it existing at 5, or it looks,
It's
eyeballing your plan, it looks like it might be more like 6 or 7 or something.
It's very close. It might be 6. I don't have a dimension to that's scaled out on this, Mr. Athey, but as you can see, if you just go straight down, it's pretty close.
Pretty close. So call it 5.5, maybe 6.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I would say 5.5 to 6. And again, we're coming in probably 3 to 4 feet on that other side from where it is.
And Ms. Burke, I believe, indicated, and I'm sorry, I was taking some other notes, that an effort was made to reach out to the neighbors. That neighbor appears to be a Renwalls? Was that one of the neighbors? Is the neighbor aware of the 2-story house? Because I think the mayor actually has a really good point with the windows and everything. Is that adjacent neighbor aware of the exact nature of the project being 2 stories and giving up I'll call it a very minor part, but at least the setback will still be there?
They were, I believe, and Ms. Burke can confirm, but I would presume they were one of the people that got the letter. Again, she was looking to send it to people behind, across, and adjacent to the property. And that letter explained the variances we were seeking off of the property line that we were seeking, and she included copies of the plan as well.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, I guess in a way it's unfortunate, but I couldn't I'd be too inconsistent with other things I've done to say, well, why don't you chop the tree down and move it the other direction? I just can't, I don't think I can go. It's unfortunate, but I honestly, I think you're probably doing the right thing after a little bit more consideration. Your Honor, I have nothing further. Everything's pretty straightforward here.
All right, I have a follow-up, but I'll yield to Mr. Lasko. Dan, questions?
All right, I do have a question. The plan that's up on the screen shows the garage being on the left side of the house, viewing it from the front. But one of our eagle-eyed staff noticed that you had another exhibit where you gave front, side, and rear elevations, where the front elevation shows the garage on the other side. So
That's the correct one, Mr. Lasko. Because even if you go back to the plan that we just looked at, where the picture in the front shows the garage on the wrong side, because you can look at this and you can see the driveway coming in from the street to the, if you're
okay.
facing at the right side of the house, if you're walking out the left side of the house. So this elevation has the garage, it should be flipped, which is what the plans show on the next page.
All right, that's it. I just wanted to make certain that the garage side will be on the side with the greater side yard setback.
Yes,
All right, and the house will be moved back roughly 20 feet from the existing house's location, which should help mitigate some of that window problem that the mayor and Dave pointed out, since that neighboring house also seems to be very, very close to the front lot line.
that's
It
correct.
too looks like a non-conforming situation as far as I can tell from the photos. So that ought to help. But there's still, I mean, people can add shrubbery, people can put up fences, I guess, to some degree. And the current setback is virtually the same and up closer. So I don't know if it's a big deal, but I guess if the neighbor wants to comment, they're free to come. So letters went out to everybody and they're free to object if they think it's problematic. That's all I have.
I had, thank you very much, Mr. Lasko. So I had a technical question on the communications with the neighbors. Ms. Burke, it's not your responsibility to know which property is in a rental circumstance and which is in an owner. Did it go to the houses or did it go to the actual owners of record? Because I wonder if there are a few rentals in the area, and I wonder if if it went to a tenant, they might be like, who cares? And by the way, I'm not showing up at any meeting, but the actual owners might care. Do you know who the letters were addressed to?
Yes, everybody was addressed as the owner, the owner and the owner addresses that were listed.
Sure.
So as far as I know, they were sent directly to the owners. I took into consideration that some of them may be rentals. So to be sure to follow with, who was listed as the owner of the property and the property listed as their mailing address is where I sent the notifications.
Okay, I appreciate that. Because if you're in your circumstance, if you were in Colorado and the house next door to you decides to go through the same thing, and if this house is, put into the rental inventory, sending it to the property sending it to the property address and getting to a tenant, it's kind of like whoop-de-doo. You might want to have something to say about the home next to you. I think you see my point. So that's good. I'm glad you addressed your communications to the owners of record. I recall there being a fence. It's a very long kind of rectangular shaped property. Is the fence on your property, or does that belong to an adjacent, singularly adjacent or adjacent, or multiple property owners? Who owns the fence? Any idea?
That I'm not clear on. I believe we are the owners of that fence. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Mr. Mayor, just looking at the picture,
Uh-huh.
again, from the front, I see I guess what looks like a chain link fence on the
Correct.
side. Just based on the fact that there's a gate, I'm guessing that's the neighbor's fence because it looks like it goes in towards their property as opposed towards ours.
I think there's one in the back as well.
There's that one that runs along the back property line. You can kind of see it off to the right.
If, Mr. Mayor, if I may, the survey shows the one going the length of the property on the property pretty clearly. The one in the back, it looks like it starts off the property and then gets on the property. I have to
Yeah.
assume the survey is accurate.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Mr. Athey.
So my question is this. I always like to take these opportunities to right any wrongs. Any, I would be grateful for any, not trying to, let me say this, to set the record straight. Greatly appreciate your willingness to invest in this property, truly mean that. When you look at what's there and you look at what you're gonna do, I am grateful for your willingness to improve the property, and I mean that sincerely, so thank you. It would be terrific if the old crummy fence could go away with this nice, beautiful home that you're considering. And similarly, if the with it, the fence in the rear, which appears to be not on the property line, but partially on the property line and partially in perhaps somebody else's property, or maybe in a no man's land. But I would certainly appreciate your consideration of those small things. I don't believe I have any other questions. All right, so let me let me ask, Mr. Tracy, anything that you or Ms. Burke would like to say in closing, and then we'll turn to any public input, and/or I'll ask Mr. Bergstrom if he has any input that he'd like to make. But first, let me offer Ms. Burke and you, Mr. Tracy, any closing comments or thoughts?
Nothing from my end, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Nothing from my end either. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bergstrom, anything you want to add?
No, nothing. It looks like a fine project, and for whatever it's worth, I think it's a reasonable plan to offset the house a little bit to allow access to the rear yard.
All right. All right. In that case, let me ask Ms. Bergmiller, is there anybody from the public that is waiting or with their hand up, or anybody that is in attendance that would like to offer any comments or observations?
Yes, I have Mr. Gross with his hand up. Hold on one second.
All right.
Good evening, board. How are things going?
Good.
A few questions. One, were the letters to the neighbors sent registered with receipts required?
Why don't you go ahead and list all your questions, and then we can ask the applicants all at one time.
Okay, so that's first question. Second question, what is the spacing between the existing homes to each other? I guess my feeling is having it offset, I feels too close after going over there even this afternoon. So even though the tree's there, then it shouldn't matter much because the driveway is going to be on the opposite side of the property anyway. And during construction, it's all, available earth to roll whatever machinery needs to go over there. At a later point, if someone wants to build a pool, I went around, there's no pools in that whole neighborhood. So I don't think that should be a determining factor. As far as the setback, it's great that it's equal to the 3 new houses, but I think that property's too tight, even for a smaller home. And like you said, proportionately, it's smaller because it's a 40-foot versus a 50-foot. But I just think it should be centered. And if it cannot be built centered where both properties have breathing space, then you know what? Leave it, redo it, and move on. I'm against it as the plans are now.
Very good, thank you. All right.
Mr. Gross, do you live in the
Yep.
neighborhood, Mr. Gross?
Right around the corner, yes.
What's your address?
It's 301 Moore Avenue.
Thank you.
So let me ask Ms. Burke or Mr. Tracy if they'd like to respond, but we'll do the letters first in terms of what was their, what was
They were,
the,
they were
class?
sent regular mail. I don't know that one would have gone to Mr. Gross because I don't think we went off of our block or what's directly behind us when we sent those letters out. With regard to the setbacks, I think I kind of stated our rationale for why we were aligning the house as we were. It's really to facilitate access around the house for whatever purposes. I mean, a pool, some other type of addition, a sunroom or something like that. That it made sense to create a little bit more room to one side, which again was enhancing off of the setback that was already there. And again, holding the setback that essentially existed on the far side of the house. I had a note that Mr. Gross had raised 3 questions. I know I hit 2. I can't remember what the third one was.
He was asking about the spacing between the existing homes. If you had
Yeah,
specific-
yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Losco. As I mentioned before, there's going to be a greater spacing between the current home that's on our lot and the homes that are next to us. As far as the 3 new homes that were constructed, they have about 3.5 more feet of setback than we do, but they also have 10 feet more of lot width than we do. And again, their lots were created by the board in allowing 50-foot lots as opposed to 65-foot lots. This is an existing 40-foot lot that we didn't create. Again, the house that's on the lot goes back to 1949. So it's not anything that this applicant created on the property.
Let me ask a question. If you move the house 1 foot closer to the newer construction properties, that gives you 8 feet on that side and 6 on the other. Does that limit your ability to access the rear for constructing a shed, a pool, whatever?
I would defer honestly for Jeff to answer that, only because Jeff has a better feel than I do for the width to get around the house. I mean, 1 foot to me doesn't seem like a great inconvenience to shift it. On the flip side, moving it 1 feet doesn't really make that much of a difference when you're looking at it, but
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. We don't have the specific to Mr. Gross's point. We don't have the specific side yards as they exist right now. And looking at your diagram, the proposed construction is very close to what's out there right now on the right side of the house if you're looking at an aerial view. But I don't know exactly what it is, and it looks a little bit closer. So even if I moved it 1 foot over, I'm better centering it, but I'm sensitive to the idea that you need access to the rear of the lot too for future purposes.
But I guess what I've asked first, Ms. Burke, putting everything equal, is shifting the house 1 foot to the right. Does that cause any problems that you can foresee?
No.
Okay. So the only thing I would ask further than that is if Jeff sees any particular complications with future use if we were to shift it that 1 foot, because otherwise, obviously, we don't object to that thought, Mr. Losco.
I don't know that it's my place, but trying to drive a backhoe gets more and more interesting as you get below 10 feet. So it's,
That's why we're trading on your experience.
they're not a car. I thought that 9 feet looked awful nice compared to.
Well, I would note, having walked back there and you take a look at that photo, that first photo, after the driveway and where you look at where the trash and recycling containers are located, there's a grassy area that adjoins. So I don't think there's any obstructions in the way. You would, obviously somebody, Ms. Burke, you'd have to rap on the door of your next door neighbor and ask if there were any, if If you look on the right there, yeah, I don't believe. Yeah, I think those there's a bit of a platform there where the trash and recycling containers are, and then there's just nothing but grass. It is sloped a bit, but there is, I don't believe, any obstructions. Now, it doesn't, nothing lasts forever. Doesn't mean that the property owner on the right there couldn't put up a fence at some point, or yourself might want to do that, which would make it tighter, but it is a consideration. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, from our perspective, Mr. Mayor, I don't think there's an objection from our part if you wanted to shift the house 1 foot to the right, so make the setbacks 8 feet and 6 feet as opposed to 9 feet and 5 feet. I understand, obviously, more space on one side is better. But also, we can't sit here and tell you today that we are going to do anything else to this lot in the future beyond construct the new house. So all of it is a little bit speculative, and I don't know what size the equipment will be 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So, the 9 feet I think was logical, but I don't know that the 8 feet causes us any heartburn, and so we would be willing to shift it to a 6 and an 8 as opposed to a 5 and a 9.
Okay, right. If there aren't, Kim, any other public comments?
No, there's nobody else in the room.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. If any of the board members have any other last comments, or Mr. Tracy or Ms. Burke, if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our hearing and then commence a business meeting. So
moved.
Second.
all right, so Mr. Athey made a motion to adjourn the hearing and open the business meeting. It was seconded by Mr. Lasco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimous. Thank you. The hearing is now closed. We'll open our business meeting. And in this case, we'll need to have a discussion, vote, and then offer our reasons for our decision. My own view is, I think that there exists plenty of opportunities to have egress to the back. And so if 8 foot and 6 foot makes a bit more sense, again, that's acceptable to me. If it's acceptable to the property owner, I note that, notwithstanding the house, as you stood on the street and looked to the left, they had windows, but didn't offer any communications about a home that could be built close to the property line and could potentially impair the amount of light that enters in through their windows, but they made no comments about that. They had certainly had opportunity. I appreciate the fact that the property and the driveway will add some symmetry to the newer homes that have also been constructed on the street. I think that will be terrific. It's a good addition. I also, again, want to thank you for making the investment, and Ms. Burke, and taking down what is a quaint but very tired looking little structure, which looks like it would need all sorts of love to put back into effective use. So I thank you for that. So my own view at this point, and I'm interested to hear from my colleagues, we'll go with Mr. Lasco next and Mr. Athey last, but would be that I think this is an acceptable step to take with some minor modifications relative to the side yards. I really do think a chance to remove, in fact, I am going to ask that fencing that is presently located in violation of the existing property lines be removed, and what you choose to do either a replacement fence in the proper location or no fence is truly up to the property owner. But that would, I think, as I said, like to kind of right or wrong. Mr. Lasko, your thoughts?
Okay, I'll start with the fact that I think the mayor, you referred to it as somewhat quaint or something, the house that's existing there. I'd call it an eyesore. It looks like it's falling in on itself. And
You're not
so
an elected
any-
official. You're not an elected official, and I was being generous.
And any new construction similar to what we've seen in the schematics here, and similar, in fact, to the Mellinger properties that were built next door to it, would be a vast improvement on for the neighborhood. So I start with that. You got to get to the exceptional practical difficulty standard. And I asked the question about what's the width of the building envelope, and with a 40-foot lot and a 20-foot aggregate, you've got only 20 feet to site a house. And I would say that that is a practical difficulty that would be a challenge to build a modern house merely 20 feet wide. It would be one of these old-fashioned shotgun type places, long and lean and sort of flipped 90 degrees from what you would conventionally see. And so I think that narrow building envelope and the existence of the non-conforming 40-foot lot create those unusual and unique circumstances that justify some relief and the creation of an exceptional practical difficulty. I'd asked the question about moving the house a foot over to one side or the other. I was really kind of exploring Mr. Gross's comments. But I think 9 feet's fine. I really don't want to hamstring future owners' ability to get to the rear of their property and make other ordinary improvements, whether it's hardscaping, sheds, pools, I don't care what it is. You need to be able to access the rear of your property. And, you know, if 9 feet is what the applicant's proposing and the neighbor is not complaining about the distance between the houses, then I'm not going to insist upon anything different. I note that the variances, if granted, would actually improve the side setback, the current non-conforming side setback on the, what I'll call the left side of the house, looking at the aerial view, and essentially maintain the right side. I do wish we had those dimensions for the current side yards to measure them more precisely. So all I have to go on is the variant site plan submitted by the applicant, but it looks very close. And I don't think any slight difference of a foot or so is going to be a meaningful difference. So taking all that into consideration, I think the character of the area would be consistent with the type of house that's proposed. If the 20-foot restriction on the building envelope were to remain, I think that would work the exceptional practical difficulty to make ordinary improvements. I think that otherwise, this won't alter the character of the neighborhood. I think it will very much improve it. So I'm in support of the application as submitted.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Lasko. I am going to offer as part of an amendment to remove the fence that is located in an incorrect place. Placement is not correct. Do you have any reaction to that?
I don't know if we have actual proof that it's in the wrong spot. I mean, if it's encroaching or otherwise, it would be smart for the owner to correct that. At some point, they're going to want to sell, and that kind of an issue is going to come up at settlement. But if you feel that that's a condition you want to attach to any motion you make, that's certainly your prerogative.
I thought from the drawing, it was clear that it did, and it appears to be, if you look at it, it runs on a diagonal at the back.
If it's the neighbor's fence, I see that.
Yeah, I think the question would be, sitting here today, we don't know who thinks it's their fence. And the one thing you would want to avoid doing and this is again, I'm just offering, my thought on it is you would not want to take something down and then have somebody say, wait a minute, you took my fence down.
Yeah, that would be a real problem. Yeah, and we're not trying to set that scenario up. Mr. Athey, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I think in many ways, this is a great example project of why boards like this exist. You have residents or a future resident, perhaps a property owner that's really just trying to do the right thing and is just constrained by the board. And like I said, I think that's why this board and boards like it exist. I think they've done architecturally, it looks like the house would blend in with the others real well. The character of the neighborhood maintained, as I understand it, and it was part of the record, there's no neighbor opposition. The only thing really we're still debating a little bit is that setback. So it kind of dawned on me while I had a couple minutes to think about it, while the mayor and Mr. Lasco were talking about it, that the notice just says they're seeking a variance from the 8-foot minimum side yard and the 20-foot aggregate. Oh, I'm sorry, there it is at the end of it. What I would suggest, well, let me just go ahead and throw this out, is instead of saying how would that work mathematically? That we could say instead of a 5-foot minimum, make it 6 foot, but keep the rest of it at 14. And that would give them the option, if they were willing to shave a foot off the house, they could still keep their 9 foot on the other side. Just a thought, instead of making it a, over prescribing what the other, over dictating what the other setback would be. Allow them that they could go to 9 or could keep it at it or go to 8 like we're talking about, and at least give it as their option. I don't know what you all think of that. Otherwise, not Mr. Gross's comments notwithstanding, the applicant was willing to make the change. So if that was the case, then I see no reason why we shouldn't do it. But in any event, obviously, I think it's a good project. It's good for the neighborhood, and I certainly intend to support it.
I appreciate that. All right. So if there's no other board members with any comments, then I think we should proceed to a vote with description of rationale. We'll go, Mr. Lasco, we will start with you.
I've really presented my rationale. So perhaps the better thing for me to do is to make a motion and we can debate that. So if you will, I'll move to approve the application as submitted to provide 2 variances from the 8-foot minimum side yard setback and the 20-foot aggregate side yard setback, so as to permit construction of a new residence 5 feet from the easterly side lot line and to provide a 14-foot aggregate side yard setback.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Further discussion. And I would offer an amendment to that. And let me go to the fence topic. I would ask that the property owner, Ms. Burke, engage with the owner or the neighbors, probably the owner to the rear, to see who's in ownership of the fence. I wish I would have looked a little more carefully. I thought there was a cyclone fence and then there was a wooden fence right behind that. I thought there were 2 that were kind of up against one another, but I may not be correct. But it'd be great to, so my motion would be to request that Ms. Burke take it upon herself to establish ownership, understanding the ownership of the fence that exists in the yard, and to the extent that it is not aligned correctly on her property, her parcel, that it be adjusted or removed, her choice, to while you have teams of construction people and equipment, that would be the right time to to do that kind of work. So with that friendly amendment, Mr. Lasko?
I don't agree with the amendment because I don't think she can control that, at least not unilaterally. If the fence is not hers and the neighbor refuses to have it moved and corrected, even at her expense.
Not what I said. That's
Okay,
not
all
what I said.
right,
She first has to establish that it's who owns it. If it is hers, then take corrective measures. If it's not, then she can't take corrective measures. Obviously, she can't move a neighbor's fence, and or if it's unclear what the ownership is, she's probably doesn't want to be put into that position either.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to be contrary, but I'm not going to support that amendment either. I think it has nothing to do with the side yard setback issue. It's a title defect cleanup issue. It really has nothing to do with the application. That's my opinion.
Yes.
You know,
Okay,
you guys
thank you.
can outvote me on that amendment if you like, but that's.
Well, I'd like to take the opportunity. To clean up as much as we can when we find things of this nature. Mr. Athey, your thoughts?
I agree with both of you, but I think I need to side with the solicitor on this, and I'm trying to think I'll make that a statement. When in the past, when we've assigned conditions, it's related, I believe, to the variance being sought. And I'm trying to think what a comparison here would be, and I'm struggling with it. But I have to agree with them that the fence really has nothing to do with the side yards. Ms. Burke certainly seems very interested in improving the property, and it seems like that's the type of thing that she would probably do on her own anyway. So frankly, I think maybe we ought to leave the motion as it were.
Well, Mr. Tracy, I appear to have done better in mathematics than you. So being able to count, I think that, all right, I will withdraw that motion. Ms. Burke, I think you're not permitted to say anything during this part of the proceedings, but I think you have a sense of my aspirations. And if it's possible to take that on as part of your plans, you will help us clean up things like that. We have neighborhoods with what we call in the city paper lots. We have people who have moved their fences into areas that go beyond their property line into what was common ground. And they put sheds and all sorts of things, and no, it doesn't belong to them. And then we have to make utility improvements, and then the fences have to get taken down, and it's a mess. It's a mess. So any chance we get an opportunity to correct these lines, I like to make sure that we try to do everything we can within reason. But I certainly would never ask you to move something that doesn't belong to you. Let me be clear, that would not be good. So anyway, I think you understand the spirit of what I'm commenting about, but I will withdraw that motion. So Mr. Athey, any other comments about Mr. Lasko's underlying motion?
No, and I think I need to state for the record, more or less the way Dan, I'm going to support it for the reasons I cited a moment ago, but just to make total absolute certainty. So Ms. Dan, your motion is essentially for this plan, 5 foot on one side, 9 on the other, not shifting of the lot of the house, correct?
That's correct. The motion is to approve it exactly as submitted by the applicant. And I haven't heard a second on that motion yet either, just to.
No, the mayor seconded it.
I second
Okay,
it.
okay, good.
So I'll make one more comment. I thought Mr. Athey's suggestion, though, was interesting in that he didn't compel the property owner to move to 6 feet. But and I might not be explaining this as elegantly as Mr. Athey did, but simply said, there was providing for some flexibility. Mr. Athey, I don't know if I captured the spirit of what you were suggesting appropriately.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. What I was not even suggesting, tossing, teeing up for discussion would, instead of instead of 5 and 14, make it 6 and 14. And that gives them the option of going to 8 or trying to maybe trim a foot off of the house.
I don't think that matters, Dave, to be honest with you, because they can go 8 foot per code right now. And if you give them 14-foot aggregate, they can move it 6 feet on the other side and 8 foot on this side without requiring any further relief.
We've had
They
multiple
obviously
math
can narrow
jokes.
their building as well if they wish.
All right, we've had a few math jokes tonight. I'm the one that took calculus and I should have been able to figure that one out. Good point, Dan. It doesn't really accomplish what I was thinking.
I failed calculus at Penn State, sorry.
I'm
Get a D.
slightly embarrassed, but that's a very good counterpoint.
That's why Dan and I went into law. I got a
That's
D.
exactly right. I started in engineering. Now I'm a lawyer.
All right. I have no further comments, Your Honor.
All right, and then for reasons that I stated earlier, and the solicitor identified some of the rationale related to some of the challenges that this property possesses, tests identified in the quick check case. I will support the requests as submitted. So, Mr. Athey, your vote on the motion.
I vote in favor of the motion.
Mr. Lasko,
I vote in favor for all the reasons given. And just to summarize again, I see exceptional practical difficulty both in the narrow size of the building envelope and the non-conforming narrow size of the lot, making it unique. I see this is totally in character. The proposed construction is totally in character with other recently constructed houses on the block. It's improving existing non-conforming setback problems, both front and side. No complaints from the neighbors. So it's obviously not seriously affecting any neighboring properties. And for all those reasons, I would support it. I vote yes.
I vote yes. Good luck, Ms. Burke. Tracy, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Bertram, thank you for your time. All the other city employees, thank you for joining us tonight. Mr. Athey, Mr. Lasko, I believe we need a motion to adjourn the business meeting and conclude these proceedings.
I'll make I want to hear Jeff bang that gavel first, just for the.
All right, as
All
a
right,
second,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Good night,
folks.
everybody.
Thank you,
Good to
gentlemen.
see everybody.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good night. Congratulations.